The gloves are about to come off. It is time to drop your buffs. Drop. Come on in. Drop your buffs. You are correct. Yeah. Bring it in. Switch it. You are correct. You drop your buff.
Sorry, Annalise.
Survivors ready? Drop your buffs.
Welcome back to Drop Your Buffs. I'm Sean Ross, and we are continuing our extensive coverage of Survivor Australia versus the World with an exit interview with the winner. So if you have not seen the finale, tune out now and go and watch it. It's an incredible piece of television and of Survivor history, because history was indeed made. We had Parvati Shallow go to the end, become the first person to attend 3 final tribal councils in Survivor history, and she joined the 2-time winner club. Wow. I got the opportunity to speak to Parvati just now, and I'm going to share that interview with you. Stay tuned for more Drop Your Buffs, because we do have a recap of the finale coming tomorrow on Monday. I will also be speaking with the 4th place finisher, which will be so exciting. And so that will be coming to you Monday night or Tuesday morning. So stay tuned for all of that. Plus, we are going to do a post-mortem. Evan and I are going to take voicemails from you, the listener. So you can go to our Instagram at Drop Your Buffs Pod to find the link where to send your voicemail question in, because we want to take a look back at the entire season. What a season it was. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Parvati. Oh my God. You did it.
Oh my God, I did
Wow.
it.
Okay, congratulations. You're the first person in the world to sit at 3 final tribal councils. You're only the 3rd person to win this game twice. How are you feeling after this historic win?
Well, I gotta say, I just watched the episode and my heart is beating so fast still from we filmed it a year ago, and just watching it, I felt the intensity, just like it was happening at this very moment. Sean, you've been following my Survivor journey. This is the culmination of 20 years of a Survivor story for me, and I wanted it so bad. And I just feel like it was kind of a miracle and just divine intervention. It makes me believe in some higher purpose that weaves this universe together.
So I'm thrilled with your win, but I'm a little bit nervous that it's going to reignite a feud over who is the queen of Survivor. I have to ask, have you heard from Sandra yet?
I have not heard from Sandra, but I'm not worried about that. Sandra is a queen. We all bow down to Sandra. Her legacy remains intact. It's like I would like to encourage the Survivor fan base to appreciate and celebrate every Survivor winner who makes it to the top of the heap. It's a really hard game to play. And it's like also playing this game and getting to the end and then winning. It's a cultural moment, and it's sort of a snapshot in time too of sort of the mindset of the culture at large. So Heroes and Villains was a snapshot of that. It's no Sandra deserved her win, even though I said 1,000 million times that I was robbed by a bitter jury.
Well, what you're both good at is making TV. So look, you said what you had to say. Okay.
Look, we kind of believe it, but
Okay, well, I want to ask you about this last episode, and of course, Suri going out at the final 4 in fire, making the same way she went out in her very first season. Heartbreaking for everybody involved. But I've got to ask, I mean, you talked a lot about wanting to sit with Suri at the final tribal council. Did you think that you could beat her? Were you hesitant at all to bring her?
I thought that my game would stand alone, regardless of who I brought. And I knew that if Suri was sitting next to me, she would get some of the votes that I would get if she was not sitting next to me. It was a risk I was willing to take. That's how I play Survivor. I am risk forward in the game, typically. The only moment that I didn't take like the big risk in this game was when it was the Kirby blind side and I was considering playing my idol, and the riskiest move would have been to play the idol, but I chose not to because that risk was reckless. So I think the one with Suri where I was like, yeah, I will bring her to the end because I was committed to her, and I don't commit to a lot of people in my life. But when I feel like this sense of this woman has my back, no matter what, like she would take me, if the tables were turned, she would. She's like that kind of person. And that's what makes Suri so good at Survivor because, like, Lisa's crying when Suri gets voted out. I'm crying when Suri does the fire and she doesn't make it. That's what makes her so lovable. So, yeah, she would have been a huge threat at the end, but I was willing to go with it.
Well, and then I think that begs a bigger question, which is, would you have minded if Suri won? I mean, you could have had a hand in crowning the best player to never win with a win, finally. Would that have felt satisfying to you?
I wanted to win. So make no mistake, I wasn't trying to lay down my game for someone else. I would never do that on Survivor. I am too competitive. And also, I really felt like this was redemption from Heroes, Villains in 2010. So it wasn't really like a self-sacrifice. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself for this amazing friendship that I have." But it was like, you know what? I'm going to give her the opportunity because, and then at the end, we can battle it out and may the best person win. And if she did win, I would have been thrilled for her because she is an incredible gamer. And of course, like she deserves that and I would celebrate her, but I wouldn't have gone down without a fight.
Yeah. Did you and Sari ever consider voting for Janine and forcing that tie instead of voting for Luke to give Sari potentially a better shot at making fire and winning the fire?
Yeah, I'm sure we thought about it, but Janine was so convincing. And Janine and Sari had this very deep friendship relationship out there. And so did I with Janine. And we both thought Janine was more, she was more focused on winning than kind of proving her loyalty or her honoring her word to Luke. So it was a consideration maybe as a flash, but it wasn't anything real. And I mean, as you know, in a 16-day game, like the time is so tight to run all the different scenarios. There's just not enough time to do it. So for me, I was just going based on my gut most of the game, and it worked until that last moment where I was like, oh man, they got to her. And then in considering it, like looking back and reflecting on it, of course, she's an Aussie. Like, she's not gonna vote out Luke. She would have been the most hated Australian in the country. And
Hmm.
no, nobody's gonna do that.
Okay, I want to take it back to the very first episode when you told Rob about your history with David on Deal or No Deal Island. I'm really curious because Deal or No Deal Island had filmed like a month and a half before Australia versus the world. And so, what was your plan going into the season? Were you planning on sitting on that information, using it at some point, using it even against David? I mean, he had a historic win of his own on Deal or No Deal Island that I'm sure lots of people would not be thrilled to vote for him to win $250,000 on Australia versus the world when he just won 6 million on Dondi. So what
Yeah, but
was your
that's
mindset going in on
double.
that?
That's double in Australian dollars.
Yeah.
$12 million ish is what he won on Deal or No Deal. I mean, it's a good question. David and I talked, of course, before we played, and we were both like, let's keep the big threats in the game and let's just get to the merge with big threats. And I thought that that was the best move, and so did he. The cast, I don't know if it had been announced, but I think that me, David, and Will had already been announced. So people knew that we'd played together. They already knew. So it wasn't a secret going in. It wasn't like I was spilling the beans about something that the Australians didn't already know, and Suri already knew, and Tony knew. So I just assumed that word would be out. And if it wasn't, I kind of wanted to get ahead of it. And the game, it's the fastest game I've ever been a part of. And typically in Survivor, you kind of sit on the information, you wait, you let things unfold, you kind of let relationships sort of form organically. But this time it was like, I don't have time to let relationships form organically. I saw David and Rob chatting at the first challenge, and I was like, let me just see what I can do. And Rob and I were like talking. It seemed like he was going to be the biggest target or the biggest threat, anyways, to start. So I figured if he's a smart player, he would just want to link up, but he didn't. And then he outed my secret that I told him. And then Dave got voted out. So it's kind of the best case scenario for
Yeah.
me.
Why hadn't you told Suri about it?
Sri, I thought she already knew. I did tell her, but it wasn't, I don't think it was like a big game thing because Sri and I were working together. So it wasn't like she was gonna go use it against me. But by the time when Rob brought it up at Tribal, I had already talked to her about it.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's not the
Yeah.
impression that I got because she had that live tribal moment where she got up and Suri doesn't get up at tribals very often.
No, 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 she doesn't, but she wanted to make sure because we'd already locked in with the Girls Alliance at that point. She wanted to make sure that those girls didn't, that information didn't make them change their vote.
Okay. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the auction when Luke sent you back to camp and you had a jar of cookies and a knowledge is power advantage waiting for you there. It led to one of the many incredible sequences on this season of you burying the cookies and breaking the jar. And suddenly, this beautiful jar of cookies you had has turned into a pile of sandy cookies. But it feels like the story is unfinished because what happened to those cookies?
Okay. Okay. Thank you for asking about the cookies because that was the messiest, craziest experience. It was actually way worse than what was shown on television. I originally buried the cookies in the jar upside down because I was like, I don't want rain to get in them. But then I was like, oh my God, wait, how am I gonna get the cookies out? So then I was like, I gotta test it. So then I pulled the jar up and the top falls off and cookies fall out already of that attempt. And then I was like, okay, I salvaged the cookies. I didn't even know there's an advantage in there. I'm just like trying to save the cookies at this point. And then I go for attempt number two. And that's when I put the jar in and it breaks and there's blood and sand and it's such a mess. I salvaged some of those cookies. I put them in my scarf. And then I put my scarf on and cookies go flying. I'm like, oh, looking at Maddie, who's my producer. He's been with me the whole time, the story producer. He's dying. He's like looking at me like I have a mental illness. He's like, what's wrong with you? So then I'm like, I just grabbed the kettle and I was like, for sure, everyone's gonna notice that this is missing. But whatever, I want these cookies, the ones that I salvaged anyways. I put them in the kettle and then I bury the kettle in the sand. And then I take the top off the kettle and more sand goes into the cookies that I had, the clean cookies. So there's no not sandy cookies. There's like every single cookie is sandy. And when Luke comes back from the auction, he pulls me, this didn't make the show, but he pulls me aside and he's like trying to rebuild the bridge that he had burned down with me. And I'm just laughing because Luke is funny and he's so fun. And I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to play with you, even though you evicted me like an outcast. And I after the first tribal, before we went to the first tribal, I was like, look, if this goes well tonight and you don't do something crazy and try to get me, I have something sweet to share with you. Like perhaps like a baked good or something after we get back from tribal. And he was like, ooh, goody. And so we went back after tribal and I shared my cookies with Luke. He's the only person. I gave Tommy one cookie. And I told him I just had like a plate of cookies waiting for me as like a consolation prize, but no one else knew about the cookies except for Luke. And we were just eating sandy cookies for it was like I was just like pulling gritty sand out of my teeth for the whole. I was like, I don't care. They're sandy, they're mushy, they're like moldy. There's ants in there. And I was like,
Wow, release the cookie cut of this season. Oh my God.
I think we need a BTS cookie
Yeah.
scene, a secret
Yeah.
scene.
I want to ask you more about Luke because this move of ripping up your advantage, your knowledge is power advantage, has been heavily debated. Many people call it a great, shrewd way for you to minimize the target that you had on your back with this public advantage. Others see it as Luke getting one over on you. What is your perspective on ripping up the advantage?
You can see any move however you want. Like when I was in Micronesia, I went on Exile Island and I found an immunity idol there that I did not bring back to camp. Because if I had brought an immunity idol back to camp with the relationships that I had built at the time, it would have caused chaos and it would have messed with my social game and maybe cost me some jury votes at the end. So I play multiple layers when I'm playing Survivor. There's the social game that is really primary for me. It's a relationship forward game. And then the advantages are sort of like second tier. I'm going to play with an immunity idol or an advantage. Look, I already used my advantage. I used it on the cast vote. I played it the way that it needed to be played. To me, I was done with it. When Luke told me that he had an idol, I was already working with Luke. He and I, as far as I was concerned, were going to the end together with Janine. So why would I at that point Luke was already so stressed out, like trembling that I was going to steal his idol. I didn't need that kind of chaos. And Luke is a chaotic player. So for me, just ripping up the thing, yeah, it does look like he got one over on me. And if he wants to believe he got one over on me, so be it. That's fine with me. But I ripped it up because I don't need chaotic Luke running around being a chicken with his head cut off. With the knowledge is power immunity, I don't, if he had more time to think about it, like before we went to tribal and he was like, oh, she hasn't ripped it up. All Luke would have done was sit on the beach doing up ideas of what to do, how to hide it, so I wouldn't get it from him. And if we go to tribal and I'm like, okay, Luke, do you have an idol? Give it to me. And he's like, no, because he gave it to Shawnee. And then they vote out Sari or me, like, no, because Luke won the necklace over and over again. So the last thing I needed was Luke being a little shit stirrer. So I just decided to rip it up because I'd already played it. I used it.
Okay. So I have so many more things to talk to you about, but we have very limited time here. Just promise me that you're going to come back on Drop Your Buffs for your fifth appearance or whatever it is, so we can do a deep dive on this.
Yeah.
But one last thing, you published your first memoir earlier this year, Nice Girls Don't Win, available in bookshops now. And I can't help but wonder what the epilogue would be now that you have this historic win under your belt. In just a couple of sentences, can you touch on sort of all of those lessons learned that are in Nice Girls Don't Win and how they applied in this game?
Like I said in the final, thank you for the plug of my book, by the way. And like I said in the final tribal, the way that I played this game and won it is a culmination of everything that I have learned in my entire life. And the book is a lot of the stories that made me who I am to the point of going off and playing Australian Survivor. So the epilogue is right before I left to go play. So coming back, it would be this celebration, this cementing of a legacy that is this book will lead you to victory. If you implement the wisdom that I have laid out in Nice Girls Don't Win in your own life, you will be victorious because it's really all about finding out, discovering who you are and aligning with who you are, being your number one ally, trusting yourself, and then taking action from that place.
Love that. Okay, Parvati, I'm going to let you go. Congratulations again. It was a masterclass to witness, awe-inspiring and incredible television. Love you so much. You deserve it all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Bye.
Bye. I'll see you soon.